Breaking news, LA District Attorney George Gascon is announcing charges against the suspect involved in that deadly bus hijacking. Let's listen in.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for being here with us today. In addition to myself, Supervisor Janice Hunt will be speaking. Also, Metro CEO Stephanie Wiggins and LAPD Assistant Chief Blake Shaw. We also have Mr. Valiant here, who is the Assistant Head Deputy Major Crimes Division. He'll be available also if there are any questions that I may not be able to answer for you. I will say a few words in English, then I'll say them in Spanish, and then we'll turn it over to the other speakers. So today we stand together to acknowledge the tragic and senseless violence that occurred at our public transportation system last week. First, I want to express our deepest condolences to Mr. Rivera's family, who tragically lost his life during this horrific incident. I also want to take a moment to honor the bravery of the driver and passengers who face unimaginable terror. Mr. Dennis Contreras, the bus driver, acted with courage under immense pressure, making decisions that likely saved others' lives. The hostages aboard the Metro bus demonstrated extraordinary strength and resilience in the face of extreme danger. Finally, I want to thank the LAPD SWAT team, who under incredibly difficult conditions was able to bring this incident to a successful arrest without having to use additional violence. Violence in our public transportation system is never tolerable, and every day nearly 1 million Angelenos rely on Metro to get to work, school, and return safely home to their families. The actions of a few should never threaten the safety and security of thousands who depend on this essential service. This type of violence will not be tolerated, and this administration will seek justice for the victims. I'm proud of the work that my team has done. We filed felony and Metro-related crimes over 94% of the time during the last 3 years, and we will continue to do so. To all those who use Metro, I know that you may be experiencing increased fear as a result of the many reports regarding violence in Metro. Know that I see you, I hear you, and I will do everything that I can to ensure your safety. Let me very quickly go over the charges here so you have the information. We had a total of 6 victims in this case. We had the murder victim, which is Mr. Anthony Rivera. We also had the bus driver, who was a victim of carjacking and kidnapping victim, Mr. Dennis Contreras. We have Ms. Arcida Coleman, who was a victim of attempted robbery, kidnapping, and she was a robbery victim. And then we have Joy Davis, DeJuan Jenkins, and Maurice Williams, who were all victims of kidnapping. There are a total of 12 counts in this case: 1 count of murder, 1 count of carjacking, 1 count of kidnapping during a carjacking, 1 count of assault with a semi-automatic handgun, 1 count of attempted murder, 1 count of robbery, 4 counts of kidnapping, 1 count of felony evading with reckless disregard, 1 count of a felon in possession of a firearm, and 1 count of a personal use of a handgun enhancement. If Mr. Campbell is found guilty, he's facing a total of 90 years and 9 months to life in prison. We'll say a few words now in Spanish, and then we'll turn it over to the other speakers, and then after that, we'll open it up for any questions you may have. Primero que nada, quiero dar las gracias que estamos aquí con la supervisora Janice Hunt. También tenemos la CEO de Metro, la señora Wiggins, y el asistente de jefe de policía, el señor Shaw. Hoy estamos aquí para reconocer la trágica y sin sentido violencia que ocurrió en nuestro sistema de transporte público la semana pasada. Primero quiero expresar nuestras más profundas condolencias a la familia del señor Rivera, quien trágicamente perdió su vida en este horrible incidente. También quiero tomar un momento para honrar la valentía del conductor y los pasajeros que enfrentaron un terror inimaginable. El señor Dennis Contreras, el conductor, actuó con coraje bajo una inmensa presión, tomando decisiones que probablemente salvaron vidas. Los rehenes a bordo de este bus de Metro demostraron una fuerza y resiliencia extraordinaria ante un peligro extremo. Finalmente quiero dar las gracias al Departamento de Policía y al equipo de SWAT que con gran valor pudo llevar estos arrestos sin tener que tener violencia adicional. La violencia de cualquier tipo en nuestro sistema de transporte público es absolutamente inaceptable. Todos los días, casi 1 millón de personas viajan en este sistema y las acciones de unos pocos no pueden debilitar nuestro sentido de seguridad. Este tipo de violencia no será tolerada y esta administración buscará justicia para las víctimas. Estoy también muy orgulloso del trabajo de mi equipo, que ha estado presentando delitos graves en crímenes relacionados con Metro a más del 91% de los casos en los últimos 3 años. Y para aquellos que están en Metro, que usan el sistema de Metro, que pueden estar experimentando miedo, sepan que los veo, los escucho y les prometo que vamos a hacer todo lo más posible para asegurar su seguridad. Muy rápidamente, sobre los cargos de este caso, tenemos un total de 6 víctimas en este caso. La primera víctima es el señor Anthony Rivera, que es víctima de asesinato. Tenemos también el conductor del autobús, el señor Contreras, que es víctima de secuestro y robo de vehículo. Tenemos a la señora Arcita Coleman, que es víctima de intento de asesinato y secuestro de robo. Y la señora Joy Davis, Duane Jenkins y Maurice Williams, que todos son víctimas de secuestro. El sospechoso en este caso enfrenta 12 cargos, un cargo de asesinato, un cargo de robo de vehículo, un cargo de secuestro durante un robo de vehículo, un cargo de asalto con una pistola semiautomática, un cargo de intento de asesinato, un cargo de robo, cuatro cargos de secuestro, un cargo de evasión detectiva con desprecio imprudente a la vida, un cargo de posesión de arma de fuego con un siendo delincuente, y también tiene otro cargo por usar un arma de fuego. Si es convicto, este señor enfrentará un total de 90 años y más de prisión. Ahora voy a pasarle el micrófono a la señora Hans. I'm going to turn it over now to Supervisor Hans, and then we'll go from there. Okay, Supervisor.
Thank you. Well, as a Los Angeles County Supervisor, as current chair of the Metro Board of Directors, as a resident of Los Angeles County and an occasional bus rider, I want to thank you, DA George Gascon, for calling this press conference and highlighting the importance of this case, and for bringing charges against Lamont Campbell for murder and for the terror that he brought upon Metro passengers, our Metro bus driver, and downtown Los Angeles in the early morning hours of September 25th. I again want to thank LAPD Assistant Chief Chow for being here, and particularly to the members of the LAPD SWAT team for their response to this dangerous situation, for stopping this bus, and for ultimately bringing this suspect into custody so that our justice system could indeed hold him accountable. A man who enacted this much violence must be charged to the fullest extent of the law, and I appreciate that that is what George Gascon is doing with this long list of serious charges. If this man is found guilty, he will spend the rest of his life in prison for the pain and suffering that he caused. And I, too, want to express my deepest condolences to the family of Anthony Rivera, who was murdered on his way home from working a long shift as a parking attendant at Dodger Stadium. His family is grieving, and we've learned from his mother and relatives that he was a former National Guardsman and someone who relies on Metro to get back and forth from his job. And as the chair of the Metro Board of Directors, let me say with no equivocation that Metro needs to be safe, and we must do everything within our power to make it safe. Our millions of riders like Anthony Rivera and every other passenger that was on that bus, and our Metro employees like the brave bus driver who safely drove his bus for over an hour while Lamont Campbell threatened his life, they all need to know that they will get home safe. I will continue to push Metro to do everything possible to protect our riders and our employees. And in my opinion, that means putting in place weapons detection technology at our train stations and on our buses, installing barriers to protect bus drivers on every bus, and ensuring more visible law enforcement across our system. I appreciate DA Gascon, your staff, the LAPD for doing everything you can to hold Lamont Campbell accountable and send a strong message that violence on our transit system will not be tolerated. But I know that the public will be looking to Metro to see that we do everything we can to prevent violence like this from being inflicted upon more riders. Thank you, and I would like to turn it over to our Metro CEO, Stephanie Wiggins.
Thank you, Supervisor Hahn. I want to thank DA Gascon, Chair Hahn, Assistant Chief Chow. I'd like to again extend my deepest condolences to Mr. Rivera's family. He, like the nearly 1 million people who ride Metro every day, deserve to be able to take the bus or train home or to work without fear of violence. Our buses are a community space and a community asset. Holding the person who committed this heinous crime accountable for his actions is an important step in helping to dissuade further crime on our system. Our 12,000 Metro employees deserve to be safe at work, and the action taken today is extremely meaningful because our employees who are public servants need to know that people will be held accountable. I appreciate the work as well of LAPD to arrest the suspect promptly and to the DA for their prosecution under these charges. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Blake Chow. It's BLAKECHOW, Assistant Chief. First, let me thank District Attorney George Gascon for bringing these charges upon this individual. Again, we spoke about accountability, but I'd also like to thank Supervisor Hahn and CEO Stephanie Wiggins, because what you're seeing here is the collaborative approach to making sure that our system stays safe. Before I start, I'd like to really extend my condolences on behalf of LAPD to the family of Anthony Rivera, but I would also like to praise our officers that have been mentioned, as well as the bus driver whose actions prevented further loss of life and led to a swift arrest. So I'll just go over very quickly kind of the timeline of events. On Wednesday, September 25th at about 12:45, officers from Los Angeles Police Department Southeast area responded to the area of Manchester and Figueroa in response to radio calls of a disturbance, a possible assault with a deadly weapon on the MTA bus. The bus driver had activated the panic alarm, which notified the bus operations center out of the MTA, who then notified our dispatch, and we dispatched LAPD officers. The police, we ultimately found the bus at 117th and Figueroa. At that point, the bus was stopped, and the officers from Southeast set up near the bus, interviewed an individual who had gotten off the bus and realized that we had a potential armed suspect on the bus. They attempted to contact people on the bus through the PA system, but the bus kind of rolled away on a slow roll away from the officers, and the pursuit began. The pursuit lasted about an hour, and the officers stayed behind the bus all the way through Los Angeles into the downtown area. And the officers had the foresight to determine that we had a possible hostage situation, and had the foresight to actually notify SWAT very early in the pursuit, which allowed them to get out there and handle the situation as they did. So the plan worked. The officers deployed spike strips, as you saw in coverage, in an attempt to stop the bus. And the spike strips were ultimately effective at 6 and Alameda, which is where the bus was stopped. SWAT officers had joined the pursuit because there was a potential hostage situation that was occurring on the bus. And once the bus was stopped, the officers disabled it and prevented it from moving again. And SWAT officers used distraction devices to board the bus, to take the suspect in custody, rescue the driver and also one other passenger without further harm. Unfortunately, the passenger, later identified as Mr. Anthony Rivera, was found with multiple gunshot wounds. He was taken to a hospital where he succumbed to his injuries. The bus driver and the other passenger who had been hiding in the bus were also rescued. South Bureau Homicide responded to assume the investigation. As you know, the suspect's name was Lamont Campbell, 51 years old, was arrested that night and booked for murder and subsequently filed on by the district attorney. So I just wanted to say in conclusion, we are committed to working with our partners in the MTA to ensure that the operators and passengers have a safe public transportation line that is safe to use for everybody. Thank you.
Okay, are there any questions?
Was there an attempt to arraign him today?
Yes.
What happened?
The sheriff was unable to bring him to court.
You've been listening to a news conference with LA DA George Gascon saying that 51-year-old Lamont Campbell, who was involved in that hijacking of the Metro bus back on September 25th, is being charged with 1 count of murder as well as several other felony counts and faces more than 90 years in prison if convicted. Of course, we will continue to follow this, and we will have much more for you coming up on KCAL News at 4 o'clock.